A family story from Ohio. I set a vase of lilies on the kitchen counter, their scent drifting through the cottage I had just bought in secret, a wedding gift for my son, a start Henry and I never had. In my mind, I could already see them here, my son Daniel with my soon-to-be daughter-in-law Melissa, gathering for holiday dinners. I thought I was giving them joy. I thought I was giving them home. Then one afternoon, as I watered the roses out front, I overheard Melissa on the phone. "The house will be ours soon. Then your mom can stay in the small room at the back." "Adequate, I guess," she said. Before I could even process it, Daniel's voice answered softly, "You're right, Melissa." My hand froze around the watering can. Adequate? In the house I bought with Henry's life insurance? The house I meant as their beginning? My chest burned. How quickly generosity had turned into dismissal. I am Helen Carter, 63, widow living in Ohio. That's the moment I realized. The gift I thought would unite us might just tear us apart. Subscribe if you like this kind of story. Weddings are supposed to be beginnings. A son in a suit, a bride in white, a promise of a life together. As the date drew closer, I kept asking myself, what gift can a mother give her son that lasts longer than flowers or china? Daniel, my only boy, was about to marry Melissa. At 40, he was finally stepping into the life Henry and I once dreamed of, one we never had the means to build. I wanted his start to be different, stronger, safer. That morning, I drove my old sedan down the narrow road. I had no clear purpose, just driving to wander, a habit I'd kept since the day my husband passed. And then, at the third bend, I saw it. A crooked wooden sign stuck in the grass. For sale, Lakeview Cottage, $179,500. I hit the brakes. My heart skipped a beat. The house appeared before me. Not a mansion, not wrought iron gates with ornate patterns. Just a small 2-story wooden cottage, its white paint kissed by the sun, a long porch with an old swing. A few steps on the front stairs were worn down, as if waiting all these years for someone to climb them again. But what held me wasn't the peeling paint. It was what lay beyond. Through the small yard, the lake opened up like a giant mirror, calm and blue, rippling lightly beneath the clear sky. A duck glided across, leaving a soft wake that soon disappeared. I stepped out of the car, my hand brushing against the rough wood of the porch rail. For a moment I closed my eyes, and I heard, not the wind, not the water, but Daniel's laughter, Melissa calling his name, and faintly, like an echo from the future, the pounding footsteps of children running up the old stairs. A tear slipped down my cheek. I didn't know if it was happiness or grief. Grief for Henry, my late husband, who had once dreamed of a house by the lake where our family could gather. I opened my eyes, and in that instant I knew. This would be my son's wedding gift. That same afternoon I sat in the notary's office. The smell of fresh paper, the hum of a photocopier, all of it became the backdrop to the biggest decision I'd made since Henry's passing. When the clerk slid the contract across the desk, I drew in a deep breath. On the page, the number $179,500 gleamed, pulling my gaze. Almost all of the $180,000 from Henry's insurance, the fruit of a lifetime of hard work, would now go into Daniel's new beginning. The pen trembled slightly in my hand, but the ink was firm, unwavering. I signed. By the time I stepped outside, the sun was leaning west. I reached into my bag, pulled out the new key, just a small piece of metal, gleaming in the golden light. I held it tight to my chest as though it were a promise. And I whispered, voice breaking yet steady, "This will be a wedding gift. No one will expect." A gift from a mother's heart. The phone rang at 2:17 p.m. sharp. I was in the kitchen pouring tea when the screen lit up. First Valley Bank. I put it on speaker. "Mrs. Carter," the voice said, "we're calling to verify today's transfer, $179,500. Recipient, Lakeside Title and Escrow. Please confirm the last 4 digits of your account." I reached for my reading glasses, but my eyes caught something else. Melissa, my daughter-in-law-to-be, standing in the doorway with a bag of groceries. She froze for half a second. Her eyes flickered, lit up almost like a spark, then softened back into her usual polite smile. I read the numbers, gave the code. The transaction was approved. I set the phone down as if nothing unusual had happened. Melissa pulled out a chair, sat down, and let her hair loose. "Mom, was that the bank?" "Yes," I said, calmly stirring my tea. "Just checking on something." Inside, my thoughts whispered, "You heard every word, didn't you?" Melissa smiled, her voice dipped sweet. "The wedding is so close. I just, I don't want you worrying about too much. Are you, planning anything special, Mom? Maybe a gift?" I smiled back, slid a cup of tea toward her. "Not yet." Still thinking, I thought, "A gift is meant to be a surprise, child. Why are you pressing me like this?" She tapped her fingernail against the cup, eyes lingering on me. If it's something big, it helps to plan ahead. Furniture, appliances, even a house, they don't wait around. My hand tightened on the handle of my cup. A house? She said it out loud. She suspects. That evening, Daniel, my son, stopped by with a sample wedding invitation. He set the box on the table, glanced at me, then at Melissa. Melissa leaned in, tone casual but too smooth. "Mom, next week I'm going to look at furniture on Main Street. If you've been thinking about a wedding gift, maybe you could come along." I ran my fingers over the thick paper of the invitation, smelling the fresh ink. "Not sure yet. I've got an appointment next week inside. I already know my gift, but it's not for you to plan." Daniel waved a hand, trying to ease the air. "Don't push, honey." "Mom, you've already done so much." Melissa smiled, a little tight. "I just want everything perfect." "And, Mom, have you thought about moving? After the wedding, if you wanted to be closer, we could arrange it." I looked straight at my son. He lowered his eyes, stirred his coffee instead of meeting mine. I asked myself, since when did my boy stop asking, "How are you, Mom?" and start asking, "What are you planning, Mom?" The room quieted. A breeze slipped through the window, puffing the curtains. Melissa rose, pretending to glance at my phone on the counter. She chuckled lightly. "Your phone rings a lot, Mom." "Must be the bank again?" I gave a small laugh. "Just ads." "Nothing important." She's watching every detail, but she'll find no cracks in me. That night, I sat alone in the living room. Henry's empty chair was still there, where he used to read the paper at 8 o'clock sharp. His absence pressed heavy against me. Melissa's words replayed, "If it's something big, even a house." And then, "Mom, have you thought about moving?" I sipped my tea, cold now, bitter on my tongue. When did curiosity about my well-being turn into curiosity about my money? When did my son stop being close enough to read my face, and instead let his wife ask the questions for him? The house by the lake was still safe in my hands, but tonight I felt the first ripple across the water, and I knew ripples never stay small for long. The evening was warm, the kind that makes the air heavy and still. I had left the kitchen window open while I washed dishes, and from the living room I could hear the low hum of voices. Daniel's voice, steady and familiar, and Melissa's, soft, deliberate, like velvet pulled over glass. I wiped my hands and leaned slightly against the doorway. They didn't notice me. "Danny," Melissa said, her tone coaxing, almost like a lullaby. "If Mom's buying a house, it really should be in our names." "Don't you think?" There was a pause. Daniel cleared his throat. "In our names? Why?" Melissa laughed lightly, brushing it off like a simple truth. "Because, sweetheart, it'll be easier for everyone. We'll be the ones to manage it, keep up the bills, handle repairs, and when Mom gets older, we'll be the ones caring for her. This way there's no red tape, no paperwork." Later, I froze. Her words floated into the kitchen and settled heavy in my chest. Inside, my thoughts whispered, "Caring for me or controlling me? Which is it, Melissa?" Daniel shifted in his chair. I could picture him rubbing the back of his neck, the way he always did when unsure. "You really think so?" he asked. "I mean, Mom? She's always been independent." Melissa's tone softened, but there was steel underneath it. "Of course she has. But independence only goes so far. Think about the future, Danny. Think about our kids. Having the house in our names means security. For all of us inside me, a knot twisted. For all of us. I heard what she meant, for herself. My son heard promise, I heard possession. Daniel let out a sigh, the kind that meant he was giving in. "You're probably right." "You always think ahead better than I do." Melissa's voice purred with quiet triumph. "I just want to take care of your mother the right way." "She deserves that. Don't you agree?" I gripped the edge of the counter until my knuckles whitened. Inside, take care of me, or tuck me away in a corner while you hold the deed in your hands. The room went quiet for a moment, broken only by the sound of Melissa flipping through a magazine. She spoke again, casual, but the words sliced sharper than before. You know, Danny, sometimes older folks get confused with money matters. If we handle it, Mom won't have to worry. She can just relax. My chest tightened. When did I become older folks instead of Mom? When did my worth shrink down to confusion and inconvenience? I stepped back into the kitchen's shadows before they could see the wetness gathering in my eyes. They were talking about me like I wasn't in the house at all, like I was a problem to be managed, not a mother who had given them everything. The clink of a spoon against a cup echoed from the living room, followed by Daniel's low murmur of agreement. That was the moment, the detail that shifted something deep inside me. The sound of my own son, agreeing that perhaps his mother's home should not belong to her. I returned to the sink, turned on the faucet though the dishes were already clean, letting the water run just to cover the sound of my breathing. Inside, my thoughts grew sharp. This isn't just curiosity anymore. This is planning. A plan wrapped in sweet promises. And promises like that, they always come with a price. The afternoon was calm, golden light stretching long shadows across Karen's porch. I carried over a plate of cinnamon rolls, still warm, the sugar glaze melting at the edges. Karen, my neighbor, smiled as she opened the door. Helen, you spoil me. Come in, come in. We settled at her small kitchen table. The kettle hissed softly, the scent of chamomile rising with the steam. The clink of her spoon against the porcelain cup was the only sound. For a moment, life felt ordinary. Two widows sharing tea, talking about flowers, weather, nothing that could hurt. I remember thinking, maybe today will stay this quiet. But elsewhere, at that very hour, Melissa sat in her car outside a grocery store, her phone pressed tight to her ear. Her voice was low, steady, practiced. Hi, this is Helen Carter's daughter, she said sweetly. Mom asked me to set up utilities while she's busy with wedding planning. Could you confirm the address for the escrow closing? There was a pause. Paper shuffled on the other end. Then the clerk answered, routine, unsuspecting. Yes, ma'am. Closing recorded last Friday. Address, 1147 Lakeview Road. Cottage by the lake. Melissa's lips curved. She grabbed a pen, scribbled the numbers 1147 across her hand. Perfect, she whispered. The call ended with a sharp beep. She stepped out of the car, wind from the lake ruffling her hair, carrying the kind of chill that makes secrets feel like triumph. Inside my world, everything was still calm. I had no idea my daughter-in-law had just turned suspicion into certainty. Karen Wilson had lived across the street from me for almost 15 years. A widow like me, 70 years old, sharp as a tack despite the years. She was the kind of woman whose words you didn't brush aside. That afternoon, we sat together at her small kitchen table, the faint scent of chamomile drifting up from her teacup. She looked at me with that mixture of caution and care only a true neighbor could give. Helen, she said slowly, I don't mean to pry, but I saw Melissa earlier today. I blinked, the cinnamon roll on my plate suddenly forgotten. Melissa? Where? On Lakeview Road. By the cottage my spoon slipped, clinking against the saucer, loud in the quiet kitchen. I forced a smile, thin and brittle. What was she doing there? Karen hesitated, brows knitting as if she were replaying the moment. She had two young women with her. Friends, I think. They were walking around, pointing at the porch, the windows. And Melissa, Karen exhaled. She was talking as if it was already hers. The air in the room thickened. My throat went dry. What exactly did she say, Karen? Karen leaned forward, her voice lower now, deliberate. She said, after the wedding, this will be our place. Mom will have the small room at the back, just enough for her. The words crashed down on me. Small room, just enough. Steam rose from my tea, clouding my glasses. I set the cup down too quickly, hot liquid spilling over the rim. My hands shook, though I tried to smile to make it smaller than it was. Maybe she's just dreaming out loud, I murmured. My wedding gift, the house I bought with Henry's last savings, turned into a corner for me. A corner, out of the way. Karen shook her head gently. No, Helen. This wasn't dreaming. She was confident, like someone showing off what already belonged to her. Her words lingered, heavy as the ticking clock on the wall. Sunday afternoon, Daniel and Melissa came by after church. We sat in my living room, the sunlight sliding across the rug. I poured coffee, the smell rich and steady, something to hold on to. Melissa held her cup with both hands, nails gleaming. She gave Daniel a quick glance, then smiled at me. Mom, we've been thinking about the future. About making things easier for you, I lifted an eyebrow. Easier? She leaned forward, voice soft but a little too polished. You bought that beautiful cottage. It's perfect for us after the wedding. But if the deed stays in your name, later it'll go through probate, and you know how the government works. Estate taxes, fees. They'll eat so much of it. Why let strangers take what belongs to family? Daniel nodded, shifting in his seat. She's right, Mom. I read about it too. Probate can be messy. Melissa picked up the thought right away. If you transfer it to us now, as an early inheritance, all that trouble disappears. It's simple, clean. You'd still live there, of course, but the house would already be secured for the family. Her words were smooth, like honey dripping too thick. Sweet on the outside, but sticky underneath. I stirred my coffee slowly, the spoon chiming against the porcelain. I didn't answer right away. In my chest, I could feel what she meant. Not secured for the family, secured for herself. Melissa smiled wider, mistaking my silence for agreement. Think of it this way, Mom. You'd be giving us a wedding gift that lasts forever. Isn't that what Henry would have wanted? For his son, for his grandchildren? At the sound of Henry's name, my throat tightened. She had no right to use his memory as a bargaining chip. He worked his whole life for that money. He wanted it to give his family joy, not to fuel schemes. Daniel reached over, resting his hand on my arm. It does make sense, Mom. We'd take care of everything. Bills, repairs. You wouldn't have to worry. I looked at my son. My boy, who once clung to my hand walking into his first day of school, who once cried when he lost his baseball glove, and now he was echoing his wife's script, blind to the trap she was laying. Melissa slid a folder from her purse, neat and crisp. We even drafted the transfer form, just to look over. No pressure. The folder touched my coffee table with a soft thud, but in my ears it was thunder. I smiled faintly, pushing it back with one finger. I'll think about it. But I'd already decided. I wouldn't think. I didn't need to. In that moment, Melissa had shown her hand. The sweet words, the talk of family and taxes, the mention of Henry, they were all wrapping paper around the same truth. She wanted the deed, and she wanted it now. That night, after Melissa slid that folder across my coffee table, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, the house too quiet, every tick of the clock like a hammer against my chest. And my mind wandered back, to the beginning, to when Henry died. I was 65 then. He'd been gone just 3 months, a sudden heart attack on a Tuesday morning. One moment he was sipping his black coffee, the next he was clutching his chest. I can still hear the cup shattering on the floor. After the funeral, I came home to an empty house. 42 years of marriage reduced to a silence so heavy it pressed on my lungs. I had his pension and $180,000 from the insurance. People said I was lucky Henry planned so well. Lucky. That's what they called it. But no money could fill the hollow of the bed at night. I told myself, don't waste it on grief. Do something with it. Make it mean something. Then Daniel called with the news. He and Melissa were engaged. My boy, 40 years old, finally starting his own family. I remember clutching the phone, tears streaming, whispering, your father would be so proud. Back then, Melissa was different. Or maybe I was too blinded by hope to see her clearly. She laughed at my jokes, called me Mom before she had any right to. She seemed warm, attentive. I wanted so badly to believe she loved Daniel as much as I did. And I thought, what better way to honor Henry's memory than to give Daniel the start we never had? When Henry and I married, we rented a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. The walls smelled of detergent and the pipes rattled every time someone ran hot water. We used a mattress on the floor because we couldn't afford a bed frame. For years, Henry promised me, one day, Helen, I'll buy you a home with a porch and a garden. We never got that porch. We spent 4 decades working, saving, always a little too late, a little too short. So when I saw the cottage by the lake, I thought, this is it. This will be my gift. The dream Henry and I never reached. We'll hand it to Daniel and Melissa instead. I imagined holidays there, a grandchild on my lap by the fire, Melissa in the kitchen, Daniel laughing at the table. I saw a future where love lived in every corner of that house, But tonight, sitting here alone with Melissa's folder still burning in my mind, I ask myself, was I blind? Did my generosity plant the very seed of my undoing? Once, I thought money could heal what death took from me. That buying a home could rebuild family, stitch the gap Henry's absence left behind. But the truth is harder, colder. Money doesn't buy loyalty. Sometimes it only tempts greed. I look at my hands, the same hands that signed Henry's life insurance check, the same hands that signed the deed for the cottage. I thought I was building a bridge. Instead, maybe I built a trap for myself. The morning was quiet. I had just finished watering the hydrangeas when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with an alert from the new security system I'd installed. Motion detected, front door, Lakeview cottage. I carried the phone back inside, heart tapping faster than my steps. On the screen, the live feed flickered into view. There she was. Melissa. Standing on the porch of my lake house. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, sunglasses perched high on her head. She glanced around quickly, like a thief checking for witnesses. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a shiny key. I leaned closer to the screen, my throat dry. Melissa slid the key into the lock. Jiggle, twist, nothing. She tried again, pressing harder this time. The camera picked up the faint rattle of metal against metal. Her jaw tightened. She muttered something I couldn't hear. A bird landed on the railing beside her, flapping away just as she cursed under her breath and pulled the key out. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at the door like it had betrayed her. Then she reached for her phone. I watched her lips move. Even through the grainy audio, I knew the name she said, Daniel. Her free hand cut sharp gestures in the air, angry, impatient. She pointed at the lock, then at her useless key. She kept talking, louder now, her frustration growing with each second she couldn't get inside. And in that moment, sitting in my kitchen miles away, I realized the truth I had only suspected until now. Melissa had gotten her hands on a key to my house. Somehow, some way, she had one. But I had changed the locks. The screen showed her pacing the porch, phone pressed to her ear. I imagined Daniel's voice on the other end, trying to calm her down. She threw her hand up again, sharp, accusing, as if blaming me for locking her out of my own home. I sat back in my chair, clutching the phone. My pulse thudded, but there was no fear this time. Only a cold, steady clarity. Melissa had crossed the line. She hadn't just schemed or whispered behind my back. She had come to my door, key in hand, ready to step into a house that didn't belong to her, and now I had proof. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table, the phone still in my hand. The video of Melissa rattling my new lock replayed over and over in my mind. Her frustration, her anger, her key that no longer worked. I looked around the room. On the counter lay the small pile of invoices, the locksmith's bill, the receipt for the security cameras, the folder where I kept every document. I slid the folder closer, opened it, and touched the deed again. My name, bold and undeniable. Helen Carter. The decision came quietly like a curtain falling. If Melissa wanted to play games, then I would set the stage. I called the locksmith back, asked him to replace not just the front door, but every lock in the house, top to bottom. A second set of cameras arrived the next morning, tiny black eyes I had installed over every entrance, even the garage. This time, there would be no shadows, no hidden doors. The house felt like a fortress now, silent but watchful, and in the silence I dialed Daniel. He picked up quickly, his voice warm, almost eager. Mom? Everything okay? I let a pause stretch, then sighed softly. Daniel, maybe you're right. Maybe Henry would have wanted me to make things official, to make life easier for everyone. The silence on the line broke with a sharp intake of breath. Mom, really? His voice lifted with hope like a boy promised candy. Melissa must have been nearby because I heard her in the background, bright and triumphant. What did she say? Daniel's voice bubbled with excitement. She wants to meet, honey. At the house, I kept my own tone even, steady. Yes, let's sit down together. We'll discuss everything properly. When I ended the call, I set the phone down slowly, my heart pounding, not from fear, but from resolve. The next morning, I visited my lawyer's office. The leather chair squeaked as I sat, the smell of old paper and ink thick in the air. He adjusted his glasses, flipping through the folder I'd carried with me. Mrs. Carter, your ownership is absolute, he said firmly. Deed recorded, taxes paid, everything airtight. If they're pushing you, you're within every right to push back. I nodded, tightening my grip on the folder. We copied every page. Deed, insurance payout, even receipts for the renovations. A paper trail so clear no one could deny it. Walking out of the office, the documents heavy in my bag, I felt a strange calm. For weeks I'd been reacting, defending, holding secrets close. Now, for the first time, I was stepping ahead of them. The trap was set. Soon Melissa would walk into the house believing she had won, and that would be the moment she lost everything. The three of us sat in the living room, the lake glowing gold through the window. Melissa had her folder on her lap, pen clipped and ready. Daniel looked almost boyish with hope, like this meeting might tie a ribbon on everything. "Mom," he began warmly, "thank you for meeting us here." Melissa leaned forward, smooth smile in place. "We thought it best to finalize things today. I brought the paperwork, just a formality." "A formality?" I asked. She nodded, tone sweet but firm. "If you sign this transfer, the house will be in our names. No messy probate, no estate tax draining what Henry left. It's the smart thing. For the family," Daniel added quickly. "We'd take over the bills, the repairs. You could just rest easy, Mom." I stirred my coffee, letting the spoon chime. Rest easy? In the small room at the back? Melissa's smile twitched. "Well, I might have said that." "It's practical. You'd have your own space, quiet, away from the bustle." "Practical for you?" I said, steady. Her eyes flickered. "We're only thinking of you." Henry would have wanted this. He wouldn't want lawyers and taxes stealing his life's work. At his name, heat climbed my throat. "Don't use Henry as your bargaining chip." Melissa leaned back, smile dropping. "We're offering to take responsibility, Mom." "You should be grateful." "Grateful?" I set the spoon down, my voice firmer now. "I saw you on camera, Melissa." With a key. At my door, Daniel's head jerked toward her. "What? A key?" "She's twisting," Melissa began, but I turned on the TV. There she was on screen, jiggling the lock, calling Daniel, face tight with anger. Daniel's voice broke. "Melissa, you told me you were just checking on things." "For us," she snapped. "Why shouldn't we?" She was buying it for us anyway. I looked at my son. "Daniel, I planned a gift." "Not a surrender." He swallowed, color draining. "Mom, I didn't know." "You believed what you were told," I said softly. "Now you've seen it yourself." Melissa slammed the folder shut, pen clattering against the table. "This is ridiculous." "Keep the house then, but don't expect us to fix your mess when you can't manage anymore." The air between us tightened. I stood slowly, placing Henry's photo upright on the mantel where it belonged. "This conversation isn't finished," I said quietly, turning back to them. "We'll settle it now, before anyone leaves this house." The room went still, the only sound the tick of the clock and the faint slap of waves against the shore outside. Melissa's jaw locked. Daniel sat frozen, caught between us. And I knew. The storm hadn't broken yet. The silence after my words hung heavy. The only sound was the clock ticking, steady and merciless. Melissa's fingers tightened around her folder until her knuckles whitened. "So that's it?" she snapped, her polished veneer cracking. "You set up cameras, lawyers, all this, just to humiliate me?" I met her glare calmly. "No, to protect myself." Melissa pushed back in her chair, voice rising. "Protect yourself from your own family?" What kind of mother does that? We were trying to secure a future for everyone. But of course, you want control. You want us begging for your approval while you sit on Henry's money and call it love. Daniel flinched. "Melissa, stop." "No." Her voice cracked sharp. "You think I don't see it?" She dangles this house, makes us believe she's giving us something, then uses it to remind us we're nothing without her. Well, I won't be treated like a charity case. I won't. I rose to my feet, heart pounding, but my voice steady. I never dangled anything. I dreamed of giving, but generosity only works when it's met with respect. You don't respect me, Melissa. You see me as an obstacle. An old woman with money to unlock Melissa's cheeks flushed red. You should be grateful. I included you at all. A small room, meals together, company. Most women your age would pray for that. Instead, you twist it, call me a thief. You used a key that wasn't yours. I cut in sharply. That's not care. That's intrusion, Daniel's voice broke in hoarse. Melissa, she's right. You lied. To me, to her. To yourself, Melissa spun on him. I lied? Or I tried to give us a chance at more than a lifetime of scraping by? You want to go back to rent checks and broken down cars? You think pride pays the bills, Daniel? Her words echoed in the room. For a moment I saw her clearly. A girl raised in lack, hardened by fear of never having enough, now wielding that fear like a weapon. But fear didn't excuse betrayal. I drew a breath, lifted my chin. I will not live in a corner of my own gift. I will not sign away what your father worked for, and I will not mistake your ambition for love. Melissa opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. Enough. Get out. Both of you, Daniel looked stricken. Mom. You heard me, I said, firm but not cruel. This house is mine. My name is on the deed, my locks are on the doors. If you cannot walk in here with honesty, you cannot walk in here at all. The folder slipped from Melissa's grasp, scattering papers across the floor. She let out a bitter laugh, eyes blazing. Fine. Enjoy your palace, old woman. Let's see who takes care of you when you're too weak to lift a kettle. I stepped closer, my voice quiet but sharp. Better to live alone in peace than crowded in betrayal. Out. Daniel bent, gathered the papers in silence. His shoulders sagged under the weight of shame. At the door he looked back once. His eyes, wet with conflict, met mine. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. Then start being, I answered softly. The door closed. The echo rang like a verdict. I stood in the center of the room, the lake glowing silver beyond the window, Henry's photograph steady on the mantel. For the first time, I felt not defeated, but strong. I spoke aloud, as if to Henry, as if to myself, as if to anyone who would listen. Generosity without boundaries is not love, it is surrender. Love must have walls and doors and keys that only trust can open. I gave them a chance at joy, and they tried to turn it into conquest. But tonight I choose myself. Tonight I keep what is mine. The clock ticked on, steady, unbroken, and for the first time in weeks I felt the house breathe with me, not as a trap, but as my triumph. The day after they left, I carried the last of my boxes into the cottage. My arms ached, my back protested, but there was a strange lightness in my chest. This was supposed to have been Daniel and Melissa's wedding gift, a place filled with their laughter, their children's footsteps. Instead, it was mine alone. The rooms echoed at first, too big for one woman, too quiet after years of imagining family voices. I walked through each space, my hands brushing the fresh paint, the polished banister, the smooth marble counters. For weeks I'd pictured Melissa arranging flowers there, Daniel grilling on the porch, grandchildren running across the lawn. But dreams, I had learned, can sour when given to the wrong people. So I set the table for one. A plate, a fork, a glass of wine. I ate my dinner with the lake glimmering outside the window, and for the first time it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. A week later, I invited the neighbors for a small housewarming. Karen came with her lemon bars, still warm in the pan. The young couple from down the road brought a bottle of wine. The widow across the street brought flowers wrapped in brown paper. We sat around the table, people who owed me nothing, who had no claim on my house or my money, laughing, passing plates, sharing stories. Karen raised her glass. To new beginnings, she said. And for once the words didn't sting. They felt true. The house, which had seemed so cavernous, began to feel full in a different way. Not with obligation or manipulation, but with kindness freely given and freely received. A few days later, I walked past the shelter downtown. In the window, a small dog sat, ears too big for his head, tail thumping wildly as people passed. Something in his hopeful eyes struck me. I went inside, signed the papers, and walked out with a leash in my hand. I named him Lucky. Now, each morning we sit together on the porch. I sip my coffee. He curls at my feet, the lake rippling silver before us. No shouting, no schemes, no demands. Just breath and light and quiet company. I once thought this house would be my gift to others. Instead, it has become a gift to myself. A reminder that love doesn't always come from blood. Sometimes it comes from neighbors who knock on your door with pie, or from a dog who looks at you like you are his entire world. And maybe, just maybe, that is the truest kind of family. The call came on a gray Sunday morning. I almost ignored it. The number lit up on the screen had felt more like a wound than a connection these past weeks. But I answered. Mom? Daniel's voice was unsteady, stripped of the certainty he used to carry. I didn't rush to fill the silence. Finally, he said, "The wedding's been called off. Melissa's gone." The words were heavy but not shocking. Some endings write themselves long before the page is turned. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for everything I allowed to happen." For choosing silence when I should have spoken, I sat at the kitchen table, my hand resting on the deed still in its envelope. Once, that paper had been a symbol of what I wanted to give. Now it was a reminder of what I needed to keep. "Daniel," I said, my tone even, "apologies matter only if they grow into action. If we rebuild, it has to be on respect, not on what I can provide, not on what you think I owe you." "Just respect," he breathed out slowly. "I understand. And I want that." When the line went quiet, I stepped outside. The air smelled of earth and water. Lucky bounded ahead, chasing nothing but the joy of morning. I sat on the bench by the lake, the wood cool beneath my palms. I thought of Henry. Not just the man I lost, but the lessons he left behind. He never promised me riches, only that we would build something honest. And that we did. 42 years of hard days and small joys, that was wealth. Now, alone but steadier, I saw it clearly. A house is just wood and stone. What gives it meaning is not whose name is on the deed, but whose values echo through its halls. Trust, integrity, boundaries held firm. I looked at the water, rippling under the pale light, and I understood. Family is not guaranteed by blood or by law. It is earned, daily, in the way we treat one another. And if my son was willing to earn it, then maybe, just maybe, we still had a future worth building. I sit on the porch most mornings now, a cup of coffee in my hand, Lucky curled at my feet, the lake catching the light like glass. It's quiet here. Not the lonely kind of quiet, the peaceful kind. The kind I earned. Sometimes my mind drifts back to those moments that nearly broke me. Melissa standing on my porch with a stolen key, her voice sharp in my own living room. "You should be grateful we even included you." The sting of hearing my generosity twisted into weakness. But I remember, too, the moment I stood tall, my voice steady. "This house is mine, and every step you've taken to steal it has been recorded." That was the turning point, not just for the house, but for me. I've learned this. Being a mother, a widow, a woman past 60 does not make me fragile. It makes me seasoned. I can mourn a husband, love a son, forgive a mistake, and still draw a line that no one crosses. Justice isn't always a courtroom. Sometimes it's a woman locking her own door and saying, "Enough." Neighbors come by now, Karen with her lemon bars, the young family from down the road with their children who laugh in my yard. They remind me that family isn't only blood. Family is respect, kindness freely given, loyalty that doesn't need to be bought. And Daniel, he calls on Sundays. Not asking, not demanding, just calling. Slowly, he is learning. Slowly, we are rebuilding. I'm not naive anymore. I know betrayal. I've tasted loneliness. But I also know this. At any age, even after loss, even after deceit, we have the right, the duty, to stand up for ourselves, to say no, to claim what is ours, not just in property, but in dignity. So here I am, 63 years old, a widow, yes, but also free, strong, and unafraid. My house is more than wood and stone now. It's a reminder that boundaries protect love, that justice can be quiet but unyielding, and that independence is not a burden but a crown. I lost illusions, but I found myself, and that, in the end, is the greatest inheritance of all. So, that's how the story ends. If this made you think, or if you've lived through something similar, share your thoughts in the comments. Our channel is a space for sharing tales of the elderly woman and family revenge stories from people who have weathered life's storms. Subscribe for more, because sometimes the deepest form of revenge is simply living on your own terms.